At the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
So you can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad Pod. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Mark, and we are live streaming right now, which we don't normally do, but we want to get more in the habit of, I would say. But point being, it's been a couple weeks. Mark and I enjoyed our holiday, and we want to recap and look forward to everything that's exciting in the NFL world as quickly as possible. There's no easier, better way to do that than to just go live straight to you guys.
And the college football world, John. Don't forget it. We missed
college football.
We've got a lot to cover with the college football world. We had a hell of a college football weekend.
Lots of good stuff going on for sure. And in general, man, I mean, the football picture cannot be more exciting right now. If you're a Michigan football fan, I'm not saying just Wolverines, I'm saying Lions. There was plenty to talk about there, and we'll that's probably the one game in the NFL we'll recap because I'm still seething about the result of that Lions Cowboys game. But really, I mean, there's a bunch of games that felt like playoff games in the NFL this past week, and there's a bunch more that teams are basically playing to get into the playoffs this week. So we're going to do a little playoff machine, all that fun stuff, kind of look at some of the implications here. Should be a good time. Zach is already here. Zach, happy to see you. Francis versus Joshua apparently got announced right as we were going live, for those that like watching people punch each other as well. So, Mark, are you boxing UFC fan at all? Not really.
I mean, I'll watch some UFC occasionally, but no, I wouldn't call myself a fan of it.
No.
I'll watch any Conor McGregor fight. I'll watch any fight that other people are watching if I'm there. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, for anybody that is watching right now, feel free to hop in the chat, add some topics, respond to the dumb stuff Mark and I are saying. It will, always make it more entertaining. So let's get into it with the college football playoff. Michigan versus Alabama. I think everybody's kind of the consensus that neither team really played their best. There was some parts where it was sloppy, didn't look, like the cleanest football in the world. Mark and I were talking about this before the show started, and I really think that was just a result of two very good teams playing each other by exposing, their respective weaknesses. I thought Michigan's ability to cover receivers and get penetration on the interior offensive line was exceptional defensively. And I think Bama did a good job in a lot of ways trying to shut down the run game and make sure that no weird trick plays happened. I think Michigan struggled to execute on those. And there was definitely some nerves too, as there's 3 muffed punts or kicks for Michigan as well. They get by in overtime with an amazing run from Blake Corum and an impressive defensive stop to follow. Couldn't be more excited as a Michigan fan. I think Harbaugh really outcoached Saban in that game in totality, and I think that their best football is still potentially ahead of them. And I think that they match up very well against Washington, honestly. Mark, I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I think going into that game, I thought Alabama would win just based on history, right? Just based on how Nick Saban prepares his teams for playoff games and how Harbaugh prepared historically his Michigan teams for playoff games. I thought that would be the difference. And Michigan wasn't incredibly prepared early on in that game. A lot of mental errors, a lot of sloppy mistakes. I mean, the very first play of the game, McCarthy throws a gimme interception that should have been a pick. I mean, he just was out of bounds before he caught it, but that was thrown right to the defender. So just, to me, they didn't come out looking clean. Alabama, who you assume would come out looking clean, didn't come out looking clean. So they kind of lucked out in the fact that both teams were a little rusty. You said that it's because two great teams played each other. There's some truth to that, but also a big part of it is the delay in when the last time these two teams played. You have momentum. You just beat Georgia in an SEC championship game. Now you go a month without playing another game. Michigan just beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship game and just came off a huge win the previous week against Ohio State. and now they got to wait a month, and they don't practice every day, and they go home for a little bit to their families, and they have distractions during it, the holidays. Like every single bowl season, if you play a bowl game after Christmas, you're probably going to have some sloppiness to the game. You saw a little bit of the same thing. The Texas Washington game, there was some mistakes from both teams early on, and that's just part of this college football playoff because of how late it is. But I will say, Michigan, as sloppy as they played in the special teams, they didn't deserve to win that game with how bad they played special teams wise. But they made up for it and then some with consistently being able to get stops on defense. That was the name of their game. That's what they've relied on all season long. And I think going into the Washington game, it's a huge part of why I think they're favored and why I really can't see a world in Washington beating Michigan. When you look at the matchups, I get that Washington has the best player on the field on their team, but this Michigan defense is different. And if they were able to contain Jalen Milroe, who's a great athlete, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to contain Michael Penix Jr. So, he'll make some plays, but I'm really looking forward to that matchup. And I thought that we got an awesome Rose Bowl game and Sugar Bowl game to follow that up.
Let's
one score games in both games.
Yeah, we'll get into the Sugar Bowl too. I will say because Zach's asking, and it is important. Michigan currently is a 4.5-point favorite for the national championship. I thought Texas played really good football. They had 2 or 3 irredeemable mistakes. It was almost like the moment was too big for them. Unlike Michigan, where I felt like they rose to the occasion on those must-win situations, Texas was kind of fumbling the bag a little bit.
Washington played a damn near perfect game too.
And I was going to say that
like
Washington
Penix is he's the closest thing I've seen since Joe Burrow as a college football player. I mean, that was the 2019 LSU team. Joe Burrow, coolest, calmest, most clutch quarterback I've seen in a long time in college football. And Penix, it looked reflective.
They looked unstoppable.
He's just unfazed always. Yeah. It's never too big for him. And that does scare, Michigan fans going to that game because he's the one thing, he's going to be locked in and he's not going to be phased. And he's going to have pressure thrown at him. He's seen pressure all year. He's been in big moments, close games all year long, and he's come out on top in every single one of those moments. And they're just like the underdogs of college football this year. I mean, Michigan can say they're Michigan versus everybody motto all they want, but Washington has dealt with just as much shit from the public, from the media, from people like you and me all year. I mean, dude, they beat Oregon in the regular season, and then going into play Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, they're a 10-point underdog. And then they beat them again. And then going into Texas, they're the underdog as a higher seed, and they beat them. They beat Texas. It's like this is just kind of what they've been doing. They have a great coach. They have a great culture. They have 3 NFL caliber receivers. They have a NFL caliber quarterback. They have a pretty damn good running back, although he is questionable with an ankle injury, but he's been great all year. They're tough on defense. They just, both teams seem like teams of destiny to me. And normally you only have one of those teams that everybody's like, well, how could they lose? Both these teams, you look at them it makes sense that both these teams would win. It just does. I wouldn't be surprised to see Washington hoist that trophy, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Michigan hoist that trophy. But with that being said, when you look at the actual matchups and stuff, I don't know about you, John. I mean, I know you probably want Michigan to win. I think Michigan will win, and I also, obviously want them to win, but I can't see a world where the matchups favor Washington enough where they actually pull it off. Michigan's just so good at the spots that Washington struggles with. I think Michigan neutralizes what Washington does best, and that's sling the ball.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to hang for the reasons you said. I think that the defensive line is going to be able to create a lot of pressure. And then that paired with the fact that Michigan's secondary is pretty damn good, I think they'll be able to hang with the powerhouse that is Washington's offense. And then I think Michigan just has the advantage in almost every matchup offensively. I think that Washington hasn't really seen a run game like Michigan, and I really think they just need to keep it simple, stupid, and just pretty much execute the same offensive game that they did against Bama and just fine.
You hit it on the head. Washington is not a top 30 defense in the country, right? We haven't seen someone win a national championship not having a top 30 defense in a very, very long time. What they do have is an electric passer and electric receivers, and they just have kind of a momentum to them and a cockiness to them. But when you look at matchups, like you just said, John, Michigan running the ball, Washington not great stopping the run. That's a huge advantage, Michigan, right? Washington's best weapon is passing the ball. Very good down the field, vertical threats. They got receivers that make plays. They got a quarterback that gets the ball very accurately to them. Michigan's got locked up defensive backs. I mean, straight up man-to-man, leave them on an island, and they're making plays 95% of the time. Will Johnson's one of the best defensive players in the country, and he's not even draft eligible yet. Michigan's going to have a scheme. Jesse Minter is a great defensive coordinator. And he's going to have a scheme just like he had against Alabama against an athletic quarterback like Milroe. Similar scheme, different blitz packages. And what I honestly expect, John, is I expect Michigan to play with an extra defensive back a lot of the game. And they're going to use 4 or 5 guys, and they'll still get pressure on Penix. And what they'll do is they'll just stunt. Right? They'll stunt. They'll blitz a linebacker. They'll drop a linebacker. They'll blitz
exactly
a safety.
what they
They'll
did
drop a
against
defensive
Bama.
end.
Yeah.
And they'll do that again, and they had success with it. And I don't think Washington's offensive line can handle that. And that's the best way to stop Penix, is to get to him before he gets going. And if Michigan does that, I'm telling you, this game, it could get ugly. It could be a run away with it type game.
Yeah, I don't want to get. I mean, just as you said, right? Like Michigan came off rusty, and so did Bama, right? I mean, and I think it's just naturally what happens when you go a month without playing football. But Michigan struggled to really wake up in some of those big moments in previous playoff matchups. Obviously, they got rolled by Georgia, and the TCU game is one that they should have won, and they didn't, because I think they failed to rise to the occasion. And so, while in my head, I'm like, man, Michigan theoretically should roll this team. And I think there's a lot of arguments you can make that support that. But I think that overall, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because, like you said, Washington hasn't been counted out basically the entire season, that they're not legit, basically because of the conference that they play in. And it's just, you don't want to do that, right? That's poison. You don't want to put too much emphasis on that.
You don't want to jinx it.
Exactly. And if Michigan's thinking the same thing, they're not going to play at the level that they're capable of playing at, and that's a problem too, right? And I know they're going to be locked in, but
John, I have something that will reassure you, because I can tell you're a little bit worried. You don't want to jinx it. I know what you're thinking. You don't want to say it live, because you want to wait till everything's settled and then brag, right? Which is, I respect it out of you.
It's my nature, right?
I respect it out of you. And for those of you that are like, screw this guy, he picked Alabama last week, why is he so strong on Michigan? I've been saying the winner of that game was going to win the national title since the final results came out, right? Yeah. So, yes, I was wrong about last week, but I feel very strongly about Michigan this week. I would have felt very strongly about Alabama this week as well had they won the Rose Bowl. But I'll reassure you. You said Michigan hasn't showed up in big playoff games before, and that's true. They were
until this week. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, they didn't even show up really great until they could have played a lot better. I'll say that, right? There was definitely, like we said, some sloppiness. I think that sloppiness is out of the system. Right now, they're back to a routine schedule. They had a normal practice week. They're coming off of a game. They went to their physical therapy. They went to their trainers. They went to their workouts. They went to practice, film. Their travel day is the same. Like, everything's the same. It's just a bigger stakes game. And so I think you'll see a cleaner, more fundamentally sound from the get-go Michigan football team. And they'll do, I think, what Michigan's done all year, and that's control the clock, run the ball, play very sound defense. And anytime they do give up some momentum, they usually take it back by stopping a team in the red zone or forcing a turnover or getting a sack, right? That's what I anticipate to see happening. And so I hope that reassures you that playoff, like, sloppiness that Michigan historically has had is true, but that's, I think, because of the month off.
Yeah, I think
they didn't handle that month off well in the past, and I think that they got over that hump, and now it's back to normal time. Also, Washington's second best player, the running back, is out. Right, the huge part of their offense. He's been great all year for them. He's out, so their running game that already was going to struggle against this Michigan defense is going to struggle now even more. I mean, are they going to try to run the ball with Michael Penix? He hasn't really done a lot of that since his knee injuries, right? He's been more of just a kind of a pure passer, scramble a little bit, but they're going to ask a lot of him in this game. And if he doesn't play damn near perfect football, I'm talking making plays with his legs, with his arm, down the field, tight window throws, he's got to be perfect for Washington to win this football game. And that's asking a lot of anybody. You know, like JJ doesn't have to play perfect to win this game. He's just got to play average or above average.
Yeah, 100%. I think the play, and speaking of, right, the other playmakers that complement McCarthy, that offensive line, those receivers, but Blake Corum's. I think Mark and I talked about this. He's a Michigan player that probably should go up there with some of the greats in Michigan history. I mean, we're talking a name that's gonna kind of have some reverb to it for a long time, like Charles Woodson, like Jabril Peppers, like some of those other legends that have played in the maize and blue. I think Corum's going to be one of those guys. He represents everything that Michigan football is about.
John, if they win the Natty, when you mention the words Michigan football, the first three names that will come to your mind will be Tom Brady, Charles Woodson, and Blake Corum. I think he jumps over Desmond Howard. I think he jumps over Jabril Peppers. I think he jumps over some of these guys that they've had. And, I mean, if they win this national championship, he's right there. And also, the slander that J.J. McCarthy, I don't get what it is. I mean, J.J. McCarthy is 26-1 as a starter. I get that he's not the best quarterback in the country, but what this kid is doing for this program, what he's done for his teammates, the kind of leader he's been since day one, since before he started games, when he was a backup.
Lateral pass, that
incredible play
caught.
Incredible play.
There's not a whole lot of guys.
But also, John, he's just a perfect face of a university. Like, totally. I don't understand why anyone can go out there and slander this guy. Like, give Blake Corum his credit. He's the icon of this team. He's the soul of this team. But and he's the legs of this team. But J.J. McCarthy is the mind of this team, and he's the spirit of this team. Like, it's contagious. And I went to a few practices during the season, and I kind of see how these coaches and players interact with him. And he's just like, I mean, everybody just has a respect for him, and he's not like, when you treat a kid like that, his age normally gets to their head, right? Like, they'll have an ego. They'll just, it's almost impossible for them not to develop some kind of. He's just an unselfish, football loving kid. And he wants to win, and he's happy where he is, and he feels like he's where he belongs, and everybody around him has bought into it and believes in him, and his talent shows time and time again, and he doesn't try to do too much. John, one of the craziest stats I saw in, third and I think it was 7 or longer. I think you might have sent me the stat on Twitter. JJ McCarthy's like 78% in his career.
Yeah,
that is insane.
Yeah, no, he's. I mean. I think the biggest reason why people discredit him as a quarterback versus, some of the other guys that are probably going to get drafted this next year is because of the fact that Big Ten football, it's not like a quarterback gun show kind of offensive system. We know that, right? Like they don't look to pass first. They're not looking to throw bombs downfield. They rely heavily on their run game. Example, they beat Penn State without throwing a single pass in the second half, and people are going to bash J.J. McCarthy for that? Like, do you think that
And by the way, Penn State's defense is 10 times better than Washington's.
Right. So I struggle. I think a lot of football fans that watch J.J. think, where are those bomb passes that Penix or Williams or some of these guys can make? Like, where are the crazy scrambles? Where is that? Guys, like, that's not the system he's in. And by the way, the number of NFL players that those are the talents that people are looking for that make them successful is a pretty short list right now. It's Lamar Jackson, it's Josh Allen. That's about all I can think about as far as quarterbacks using their legs and being able to throw bombs downfield. A lot of these guys that are successful right now, Tua, Jared Goff, what are they doing? They're sitting in a freaking sitting in a pocket with a good offensive line, leaning on the run game and completing passes in important third down situations.
That's the only consistent system to win football games. You're absolutely right.
Totally.
You're going to like Josh Allen and Lamar are going to win some games just unorthodox, right? Making plays with the legs, scrambling. But most of the time, consistent winning football is running the football, play action, and playing sound defense. It's a very simple formula. You look at the best teams in the NFL, you look at the best teams in college football, and that is normally what they do. And I just think that everything favors Michigan because that's what they do, and it's not necessarily what Washington has done to get here. Washington has slung the ball all over the place. Penix has made insane plays. I mean, he's just shown incredible nuts this entire season. Like, he just doesn't care what people say. He doesn't care what the moment is. He's going to execute, and it should be a great matchup. I don't think we've even said it yet, but I'm going to be at the game. So
yeah, right. That's big news to drop. Mark is
I will be at the game. I was generously gifted tickets from one of our former guests who's now with the Wolverines, early enrollee, practicing with them. I talked to him on the phone. He's doing very well. He's excited. What a cool start to his career. But I will be there, so you'll get some firsthand content. I will be riding with the Wolverines. I will be betting on the Wolverines. And I will try to undo what I did last week, which was bet against them and talk shit about them for a week. And now I'm flipping 180. I do believe in them. I'm not just doing this because I'm from Michigan. I do believe in Michigan. I think they're the better team. I think this is their year, team of destiny. And I'm really excited. I honestly am. It should be a really good game. 13. I think the committee got it right, John. And the last thing we'll say about this before we switch into some NFL talk. Georgia winning 63-3 against Florida State. I don't want to hear another singular word about anyone saying that Florida State should have been in. I don't want to hear it. Florida State got beat 63-3. Did they have players opt out? Yes. Did they have injuries? Yes. Georgia had some guys opt out and injured as well. And if you really wanted to prove your point, it shows me the kind of team Florida State is. If you really wanted to prove that you should have been in, they had every motive in the world to come out and try to compete against Georgia. Because if they did come out and compete with Georgia and beat Georgia, they would have the rest of their lives to say, you should have put us in because we just beat Georgia, who a lot of people consider one of the best teams in the country, who Alabama barely just beat. And a lot of people think Georgia should be in. We just beat them. So you messed up. We are the national champs. We'll self-declare, whatever it is. They could have done that. They could have done that, and they didn't. They got absolutely walked over by Georgia. And if anything, it showed that Georgia probably should have been in, if anything. But I think they got it right, man. I think they got it right. The two undefeated teams, the 1 and the 2 seed overall, are playing for the national championship in Houston. Both seem like teams of destiny. Both have had everything against them all year in different ways. I mean, you couldn't write a better, a better ending matchup. Really, you couldn't.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly exciting. And yeah, so we can kind of pivot into NFL from here. We have one game that I'd like to recap, and that is the Lions-Cowboys game, because we haven't talked about that call here on the podcast. And as a Detroit-based podcast, I would be remiss not to talk about it. Was there bad officiating all game? Yes, 100%. There was missed PIs on both sides. There was a missed holding call on the long touchdown that CeeDee Lamb had. Did the Lions play a pretty sloppy game? I'd honestly say yes. Jared Goff with 2 interceptions on that same holding call with the 97-yard touchdown. And Derek Barnes was afraid to sack Dak and risk getting a roughing the passer, so he didn't. And then that goes from a safety to a touchdown. There's that tripping call that was controversial that people are saying the game should have been over there, that should have been called in the first place. I can buy that. I think that's fair. Everything that we're saying right now, though, is about how those two teams played on the field and poor judgment calls that the referees made.
And in the moment.
In the moment.
Judgment
That's
calls.
what I'm saying. In the
like
moment.
Bang
calls.
plays that happen.
Right.
Those are all mistakes are part of, like, human error is part of refereeing football games. It's what makes it such a incredible sport, is that there is going to be mistakes, and there's going to be false judgment, and there's going to be, things that naturally happen, that referees are not perfect. They're not meant to be perfect. But pre-snap penalties, like John, like you're about to talk about.
And that's what I'm saying. There is something
it raises
happened.
Questions from every like it's bringing people out of the woodworks. Like, hey, is this even? I mean, I honestly think that game had to have been thrown. I think there had to have been something evil going on behind the scenes. Somebody had money on this game. The referees were bought. Something happened. Commissioner maybe stepped in. I don't know. Something happened where Dallas needed to win this game for some kind of probably financial gain to somebody else. Detroit won the game. They won the game playing really sloppy football. They still won the game, and they took it away 30 seconds after it happened on a referee pre-snap error, which is a basic thing that teams do.
It was
all the time.
Egregious. And that's what I was going to say. This call is in a league of its own.
It's the worst
as far as worst I've ever seen as far as officiating errors go. This was a play that was going to decide the game. The Lions did everything right, and not only did they do everything right, but Dan Campbell briefed them with an actual play sheet saying this is what we're going to do in this game. And not only did they get the call wrong, not only did Brad Allen not admit fault, But the NFL is now gaslighting the Lions and trying to say that the whole reason this thing got messed up is because Skipper was covered and he was ineligible from the start, totally glossing over the fact that the referees got the wrong dude reported. And
can I summarize? Because I did a breakdown video of this. It's about a couple minutes long. If you go to our channel if you want to see that, but I'll redo it right here. It is so egregious, John, and the reason why is because, like you said, the Lions did everything right. This is a play. It's a trick play that many teams have done. The Lions have done it before, a very similar formation, and it was Decker who caught a touchdown in recent years. I think it was in 2019 or 20. It's not like it's not some brand new thing. It's a very standard thing to come in and report as an eligible receiver when you're a lineman, right? And in order to do so, you do exactly what Decker did. You go up to the ref, and really, you don't even have to say a word. You don't. You just wipe your chest. That tells the referee with this motion that you're an eligible receiver, and he has to report that. It happens all the time on run plays, on pass plays, all the time. Linemen report as eligible. It doesn't mean they're getting the ball. Right, like in the NFL, it happens all the time. Certain formations, a certain player, an offensive lineman, may be eligible. It doesn't mean anything most of the time, right? Which is why it worked, and it was going to work whether they reported Skipper or Decker as eligible. It was going to work either way. You can tell by how Dallas lined up, they were not going to be able to stop this, and that's Ben Johnson seeing that on film, and that's why he called it. They practiced this. I guarantee you, every week, every single week. You have situational practice periods, okay? You got a 2-minute drill. You know what plays you're going to run. You got a 3rd and long drill. You know what plays you're going to practice all week, and then you call those plays in a game so the players know what's coming. You have a red zone drill, okay? You have a couple trick plays, and then you have a 2-point period of practice where if you go for 2, you already have the calls based on the film you watched, based on the coaches and their input, based on the players and their input. You have your play calls ready. That's why they have call sheets. He looks at 2-point, he goes down, he sees the Decker special or whatever the hell he called it, and that's what they called. They practiced this several times probably throughout the season and definitely several times throughout this week, right? Yep. And not only that, Dan Campbell, knowing that this is one of the probable plays they'll call in a short yardage situation like this or a 2-point play, you go over those plays with the referees before a game. It's just a normal thing that you do. The refs say, hey, you got any tricks up your sleeve, anything we should keep an eye out for, anything out of the ordinary that we should look for so it doesn't catch us off guard. He went over this play, like he said, to a T with the referees. They knew that this was something that was going to happen, okay? It wasn't a surprise. They do it at all levels of football. I do it in our games in high school football that I coach. If there's anything special, you go over it. You make sure it's legal. You make sure you go over the rules with them. You make sure everything's okay. And this is just, it's egregious, man. It almost seems like a forced error. Like, you can't convince me that he didn't choose. The second he saw that it was a trick play happening, which, by the way, keep in mind, this ref knew because Dan Campbell talked to him that this is something they could do. When he saw Skipper running on the field late, it was pretty clear he wasn't reporting eligible. He was just doing that as part of a ploy so that Dallas would get a little bit confused. That was planned as well, and it was very smart, actually, by Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. So that's not obvious that Decker's walking over there by himself. That's why Sewell went over there, too, because God knows what they're talking about, right? Dallas can't hear the conversation. They see a couple linemen go over there. I mean, they could be talking about a call that they missed. They could be just having small talk. Who knows, right? I mean, players talk to refs all the time. It doesn't always mean something. And so that it was planned. And they executed it perfectly as they practiced, and they got punished for it. And it's bullshit. And honestly, like, you just give a team that's dangerous even more fuel. Similar to like I went on a rant about Michigan when the Harbaugh thing happened. I mean, I agree that the punishment needed to happen, but I did say you just woke up a monster. You just gave more motivation to a team that's very, very good and doesn't need added motivation. You just did the same thing to Detroit. Nobody wants to play Detroit, by the way, John. If you not notice what's happening, the Rams are purposely trying to lose. They're benching their players that aren't hurt. If the Rams win, they play they'd rather play us, right? We're the 3 seed, right. Dallas is the 2 seed. They'd rather come to Detroit, right? That's what most people would say. No, it seems like they'd rather go play Dallas because it seems like they're going to purposely lose to San Fran.
Yeah,
which is a very winnable game for the Rams because
I think
San Fran's benching their guys.
Brett Coleman mentioned this. I think it's because both teams are matchup nightmares for each other. The Lions and the Rams are. They have strengths where the other team has weaknesses. They're almost inverse. Like it's hilarious. And I think the Rams legitimately think they have a better shot against Dallas.
Beating Dallas.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what nobody wants to come to Detroit and play us right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Packers coming, I don't think they get away with what they got away with.
Packers might not. I mean, they might not beat the Bears this week.
Yeah. So it's I mean, and you're right, just adding fuel to the fire. First of all, I love they were pissed about it, and they had a right to be pissed about it for 12 hours or whatever. And Dan Campbell walks to that next press conference and is like, what is bitching about it at this point going to do? We're looking forward. We're worried about next week. We're worried about the playoffs. I mean, the demeanor of that to really not hang your head on it, because Lions are in a rare situation where there were massive seeding implications to this. Because
dude.
So Lions win this game, they're the 2 seed. The Lions
we could have been the 1 seed because the Rams are a good football team. The 49ers and Rams was not a lock. If the Rams had if we had one, the 49ers can't bench their starters this week because they have to beat the Rams to clinch, and the Rams would have more to play for. And I honestly, I would not say that's a shoo-in that the 49ers were going to beat the Rams in a healthy versus healthy matchup. I really don't. That would have been a game. So you're looking
totally been a game.
It's bullshit. It drives me insane. I will say the last thing I'll say on this game before we look ahead to this week. Dan Campbell I've been saying this for a long time, dude. As much as I like the guy and as much as a great culture fit he is, he's a freaking idiot when it comes to decision making, and he's just insane. He's insane. He's doing shit that you just don't do. He went for we lost a game against Green Bay on Thanksgiving because he went on a fake punt in our own 30-yard line, and he admitted after the game, that's on me. Shouldn't have done that. That's a mistake. What does he do against Dallas in a huge implications game on the 25-yard line? 4th and 2 or 3, he runs another fake punt. The guy's insane, and it worked, and we'll talk about how smart he is and crazy he is in a good way, but if that had not worked, we basically lose the game right then and there. The not kicking field goals when you're not inside of the 3-yard line. I would love going for it on 4th down. I love going for it on 4th down, but only if you really feel good about it, do you do it, right? And then, the 2-point conversion, I'm sorry, I know we got screwed over.
I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you to say it.
I get that you told your team, we're going for 2. I love that. I would do the same thing, right? You're in Dallas, steal the game. I completely agree. But once the penalty was called, you're on the 7-yard line, John. I love the aggression, I really do. But your team is playing good. You just drove down the field and if you win the overtime coin toss, I was pretty confident Detroit would get the ball and go down and score again and end it and not even give Dallas the ball back. So
I have 2 points that might make you think a little differently. One is a critique on Dan Campbell. One is making a case for his decision. Laporta was hurt. Jamo was hurt. They just drove down, like you said. I think that Dan Campbell's more worried about keeping his starters healthy in that situation than subjecting them to another 15-ish minutes of football. The second thing that is the critique on Dan Campbell, I think everybody on that sideline was seeing so much red that they were not even thinking straight. I think they were so pissed that they're just no. Complete hyper focus. We're getting this 2-point conversion. I think that's the other side of it, which is fair to criticize.
But as your job, your job though, John, as a head coach, those are sick. as your job as a head coach, you gotta, no matter what, you have to be able to make the right call, and that was not the right call. And the second thing I'll say, you cannot be thinking about keeping your guys healthy when you're playing still for the 1 seed, because that game was very much still intact. You can't be thinking about, now it makes sense because we lost and we played Minnesota, and with everything else that happened, you got to remember when we were playing this game, other teams hadn't played yet. I mean, the 49ers hadn't played the Commanders yet, and that game was closer than people thought it would be. We were playing for a 1 seed, so you play to win that game, and that was not the play to decide that we're going to just go all in on this 7-yard 2-point conversion. That's just stupid in my opinion, and I think most statistics would tell you that. Most NFL coaches would tell you that. The guy's just insane. And he's going to cost us again at some point if he does not figure that shit out. I'm telling you, he's going to, because he can't help himself. I'll give you another example. This week, I think playing your guys is important, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes the limit because of the competitive nature he has, and because he's a former player, and because he's a tough dude. He's going to play guys like Amon-Ra, Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery a little too long, and if something happens, I swear to God, John, If somebody gets hurt in this meaningless game against Minnesota, I'm going to lose my shit. Because realistically, he shouldn't be playing any of them. Like, it doesn't matter. Dallas isn't losing to the Commanders. We're not getting the 2 seed. We have a home playoff game that's as good as we're going to get right now. It is what it is. We got screwed. We all admit we got screwed. Don't make matters worse by going out and losing a guy like Amon-Ra. Losing it. Like, you're already down J-Mo, right?
Yeah.
You're already,
the way that I see it, though, I think that it's more like I think a lot of it's tough talk right now. I think it's more likely than not that he pulls all of his starters by the half. Like, I think that's the case. So
I hope you're right, but I swear to God, John, I swear to God, sometimes he pushes. I'm telling you, like, this is what he does.
He might.
You and I both know the smart decision. We're not the smartest people in the world, but you and I both know that they should not be playing certain players in the second half of that game, no matter what the score is.
Sure.
And if they do, I'm telling you, I swear to God, I'm going to lose my shit if something happens to a star player on our team and we lose the next week because of it. Like, it's fireable offenses. Like, he can't, as much as he's liked and as much as this turnaround's been incredible, you can't do that shit. You cannot.
He lives by his aggression and he dies by it. And I think the thing is that he always owns up to it when these criticisms come up. So it's just like, shit, man, that's the style of football we're signing up for. Because, I mean, for as much as you criticize that, right? Like, Brandon Staley was this kind of coach his first year as a head coach.
And where did that get him?
Per my point, he started to bitch out of it. He started to change his coaching philosophy on those fourth downs that actually he converted a pretty high clip back in his first year. He lost
a lot of games because of it too, John, even in that first year.
I don't know, man. I'm just trying to say that, look, if this is your philosophy that, hey, I'm feeling the vibes, we're going to go for it on fourth down, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to go for 2, we're going to do fake punts. If that's what your philosophy and your style as a head coach is, you're going to win games because of it. You're going to lose games because of it. And you're just going to have to deal with the consequences. And honestly, I will take a blatantly aggressive, almost belligerently, like,
he's a crazy person,
aggressive.
Dude. He's a crazy person.
I'll take that any day.
My last point on it is, and I guess, that's a good point, but when you're a team like the Lions were last year, you're not as good as most of the teams you play. It works. It gives you an advantage. When you're the better team and you have the better roster spots at most positions and you have a winning formula that doesn't require crazy bullshit, stick with it. You don't see the 49ers doing this shit. Right. You don't see the Ravens doing this shit because they're better than you. They don't need to trick you. So don't do, like, the Lions are the better team most of the time they're on the field. There's only a few teams that they'd have to do that kind of stuff to beat them, right? And he does this stuff against teams that he doesn't need to do it against, and it costs them more than it helps them. You got to know when to do it, when it's worth it, the seasons that you need it, the games that you need it, the opponents that you're going against that it will work against. You can't just do it all the time, right? And I think that that's what he needs to find his balance with. He's just doing it all the time. It's insanity. Like, it's scary watching these games. Like, every fourth down, you're like, I mean, this guy's insane. It's 4th and 10 on our own 4-yard line. Fake punt could happen. He does
not need to do it anymore. Really quick, so we are getting uniform updates next year. I did not know that. All of them. Like, home,
they
away.
Better not screw it up. Dude,
please give me these alternates back with the blue helmet. Please. They look so sick. I'm just praying that this is what we get. And honestly, so people are just assuming we're wearing the grays again. I have not seen any confirmation with that. So we might see this blue helmet in a home jersey or in
they should wear the blue helmet honestly, they should wear white with it.
That's what I'm saying. The ice whites with the blue helmet at home would look sick. So I'm hoping that we see something in that vein. Chances are it's going to be the grays again because they've only worn them once all season. But there's a chance, I'm just saying, that they pull up in a different look than anybody's expecting. So, all right, let's hop into the NFL games. So we're looking at a board here where half of these games don't matter. And so if Mark and I just kind of pass on them, that's why. We'll get kind of a little bit more of Mark and I's take when we hop into the playoff machine and kind of see where things might, bounce around, play with this a little bit. Mark, last week of best bets, you are 42-21. I'm 29-35. I almost feel compelled to take 6 picks to try to get back to you.
Well, we keep it going through the playoffs, John. We'll keep it going.
Okay.
We keep it. I mean, you don't have to take picks. Like, again, no one's forcing John or myself to make best bets. We are picking our most confident picks against the spread, overs or unders, and we've done pretty damn well this year. If you're a gambler, it's dumb to bet on every game. because statistically, that's how you lose. The bookies
Correct.
will get you. If you bet on everything, you will lose statistically. But if you pick on things that you're pretty confident about and you have some inside information that you think you might know or matchups that you like, and that's what happens. You go 42-21. John's 29-35 is not bad. That's not bad at all. So, it's a great spot if you like winning money. This is a great show to tune into every week. John, where do you want to start on this board? Because a lot of these games don't matter.
So Steelers Ravens, I don't think we need to touch on. Like I said, there's interesting playoff implications, but I don't care about the matchup itself if the Steelers win. So let's start with Houston Colts, because the winner of this game could end up as the AFC South champion. So both these teams have a hell of a lot to play for. Houston visiting the Colts. I mean, this is an interesting matchup. So personally, I think that Houston's kind of been in a slump. The Colts have kind of been like a little bit of a Cinderella story the past couple months. I like Houston to win this game.
I like Houston to win this game as well. Problem is I don't think it's going to matter, because I look ahead to our next game that's worth talking about is the Jags taking on the Titans in Tennessee. The Jags control their own destiny. If they win, they're in. They clinch the division. They host a playoff game. And I'm adding that to my best bets. Jags -4 in Tennessee. I think Tannehill's starting because I'm pretty sure Will Levis is out with an injury. The Titans stink, man. They are an up and down team, but most of the time they stink. And the Jags are playing for everything. And this Jags team they've had a little rough patch here, but Trevor Lawrence has been playing through a lot of shit. We saw what happened when Baker Mayfield played through a lot of shit, right? It's tough. It's tough to continue to play at a level people expect you to play when you're battling leg injuries, shoulder injuries, concussions. The guy's getting beat up, all right? I think he gets closer to his normal self, and I think they take care of business.
Yeah, agreed with that. Vikings-Lions, not really worth having much dialogue about. Falcons-Saints is interesting because if Tampa, on a fluke circumstance, were to lose, the winner of this game would be the NFC South champion. I do like the Saints here. I think hosting the Falcons and coming off the win that they just had against Tampa, I feel like they're playing for, more than pride at this point. I think they got a legitimate, shot at beating the Falcons and, just praying to God that Tampa messes up their game. So I like the Saints -3 at home here. I'm a fan of that. I am going to add it to my best bet.
Oh, there it is. John, you just can never give up on your Saints.
Hey, it's been a minute since I've added them. I've been using my brain.
I tricked you into adding them?
You did that one time, and I will never forgive you for it.
I also like the Saints, but not my best bets.
Jets at Pats, not worth talking about. Like I said, Tampa and Carolina only matters if Tampa finds a way to lose the game. So
add Tampa to my best bets, will you?
Sure. Gonna win by more than a touchdown, eh?
I mean, the Panthers stink. I don't know if Bryce Young's even playing. Their owner's throwing drinks at fans. It's kind of a shit show over there.
Pretty brutal. I would hate to see it personally. Okay, so we got Browns at Bengals. This game I don't believe matters because Bengals are out of playoff contention. We got Seahawks at Cardinals. This game doesn't matter. Seahawks will probably win it, but I think they have it's pretty much not up to them on whether or not they make the playoffs. It's up to a bunch of other extraneous circumstances. Chicago at Green Bay is interesting. Green Bay wins this game.
They're in.
I think one or two other things might have to go their way.
I think they control their destiny.
Okay. I like Green Bay to win this game. Hosting Chicago, I think this team still owns Chicago. Jordan Love proved that earlier in the season. I like Green Bay -3 here.
You love them or you like them?
Just like them.
Justin Fields and the Bears have looked good, man.
They've been playing better football, and that's why I just like them.
John, let me ask you a quick question. What happened last year in Lambeau when the Packers had a win to get in? Last game of the year.
The Lions made Aaron Rodgers cry, and he walked into the tunnel with Randall Cobb for the last time.
And nobody thought that was possible, right? I mean, going to that game, the Packers people, that wasn't possible. That wasn't going to happen. The Lions weren't playing for anything at that point, right?
This could be some repeat trauma.
I think we see some repeat trauma. I think the Bears take care of business. They definitely cover. I'm not going to put in my best bets, but I like the Bears. They're dangerous. I like the Bears. They're dangerous. They got the number one pick. They're feeling
I think
good.
they've improved a lot as a team this season. They do kind of remind me on the similar trajectory that the Lions were on. I think it would be wise for them to keep Justin Fields. I'm sure that will be kind of one of the biggest stories going into the NFL draft is what the hell are you going to do with Justin Fields? Players like him, coaches like him. I think he continues to improve and make plays and do impressive things. You're right. Do you invest in a Marvin Harrison and then an offensive lineman, both deep receiving and offensive line draft classes this year? Or do you take a gamble on another quarterback and see how that happens? That's going to be a very interesting storyline.
And we'll have plenty to talk about that in the offseason. That will be.
All right. Eagles at Giants. Not, really a nothing burger of a game for both teams unless the Eagles lose. Unless the Eagles lose and Dallas loses and then Lions are the 2 seed. But really not worth talking about.
Assuming the Lions win. Rams
and San Fran are sitting their starters for this game. Broncos Raiders doesn't technically matter. KC Chargers doesn't really matter. KC clinched the division already. Dallas Washington doesn't matter. But now we got one last game to talk about. Ooh, it's a good one.
This game,
Mark,
man.
The way that things shake out, there's a possibility that this team, the most likely possibility is the winner of this team is the 2 seed, the loser is the 6 seed. But what's a slim chance possibility is that the winner of this game is the 2 seed and the loser doesn't make the playoffs. That would be a very interesting thing to happen.
What the stakes on this game? You can't ask for much more when it comes to stakes. Like, hey, you're either the 2 seed and you're going to host a playoff game until the AFC Championship, or you don't get in the dance. The
Bills completely turned it around this season after firing their OC. The Dolphins are beat up to hell and have lost games that they should have won. It's tough, man. I think the Bills got this one in the bag.
John, coming into this episode, I was so sure of it. Coming into filming this 40 minutes ago, I was so sure of it.
What's changed in 40 minutes?
My mind's been wandering, and I've been thinking, and everything points to the Bills. The Bills are favored in Miami. Tyreek Hill's house just burned down. He's in a boot. They're banged up. They just lost their best defensive player for the year, in Chubb. He's out, done. They just got ass whooped by Baltimore. Everything points to the Bills. Josh Allen, primetime football, turning their season around. Miami is a home underdog. They've been pretty damn good at home this year. I think the Dolphins cover. I don't know if I can say they're going to win for sure. I was going to put the Bills in my best bet. Right. I have it written down right here.
I don't know, man.
I think I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to keep Miami. Miami's going to cover they'll cover. They'll keep it close. They may win the game. They'll cover. I'm going to be rooting for the Bills. I want everyone to know that. I'm rooting for my Joshy. All right? You know how I feel about Joshy. Man crush on Joshy. He's the guy. He should be the MVP. I still stand. If he wins this game, this is my take. And John, I'm not even going to argue it because I know how you feel. And you can say your opinion after, and that will be it. And we'll let the people discuss it. Okay? Because we'll go on for an hour. Josh Allen, if he wins this game and the Bills get the 2 seed with the turnaround they've had with his numbers compared to Lamar's, I think Josh Allen deserves the MVP. That's my opinion. He's statistically much better.
Numbers. Yeah.
He's statistically much better.
Yeah. So, I think you can make an argument for it. I don't think it'll be correct. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think you can make an argument for it, though. I also like the Bills to win this. I'm not going to add them to my best bets. I don't know. I think there is weird vibes, the home underdog, all those situations. Miami's beat to hell. This is an important game, so both teams are going to try. So we'll see what happens.
Everything points to Buffalo. That's what scares me.
Yeah.
Everything. John, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because we're going into this playoff calculator, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but what needs to happen for the loser of that game not to get in?
Let's find out. So, okay, let's just say Houston wins. Let's say Tampa wins. Let's say Browns win. Let's say Lions win.
That game doesn't matter. Yeah.
Let's say Saints. Let's say Jags. Let's say Hawks. Let's say Green Bay. Let's say KC. Let's say this one's kind of interesting.
Raiders. I think
we'll do Raiders. Okay. Eagles. What do you want to say for this one? San Fran?
Yeah, it doesn't affect the AFC.
Right. Say Dallas. So this is where we get the swapping going on here. So it looks like Buffalo's the 7th seed, Houston's the 6th seed. So somebody would have to squeak into the 7th seed.
And they're rematching?
There you go. This is your game right here, Mark.
The Steelers have to. So the Steelers beat the Ravens, who are resting. They're resting their starters.
The Steelers beat the Ravens. Let's see if there's any other. Cleveland's not going to have any.
Well, hold on. Switch it back to the Ravens beating, and now see if anything else changes. I don't think.
I think that's the. I think that's it, unless.
That keeps Buffalo in.
Yep. So. The Steelers beat the Ravens. And let me just check here. That's interesting. It must be due to tiebreak. It must be due to tiebreakers.
So if the Dolphins win and the Steelers win, the Dolphins still get in. Wait,
but Buffalo doesn't. But if the other way around, the 11-6 Buffalo is the tiebreaker in division, but Miami has. Must be a better strength of schedule or tiebreaker of some sort record to actually keep that 6th seed. So it's not both teams. It's just Buffalo here. That is
interesting. And there's a chance that those two teams play each other again, first round. Buffalo and Miami.
Could get very.
God, I love the NFL playoffs.
It's crazy.
Who do you think, as we look at this, John? What is the most? I'm gonna ask you two questions. Okay, what is the one team that is not a 1 seed that you do not want to see on the AFC and the NFC? And then what is your opinion? What is the best matchup? Like just most favorable. Like if you had a best bet looking at this first weekend, if you could be like, hey, I'm putting all my money on this game.
Yeah, so I think Buffalo has got to be the scariest in the AFC because of how they have clawed their way out of a losing season. I think you also have to have eyes on Cleveland, just because of the fact that like their defense is so freaking good, and Joe Flacco's having a time of his life right now. He's just enjoying the vibes. A quarterback that doesn't have a lot of pressure on them in the playoffs, that's something to be scared of, I think. NFC side, and I'll talk about best matchups. I think a team you don't want to see is the Rams. We've been talking about it. They're a good team, and they've been playing good football. And I think the Rams don't want to see the Lions. I think almost no team in the NFC wants to see the Lions. They are fueled with aggression and spite, and it is going to – some team is going to get teed off on, I think, in this wild card round because the Lions are angry and have something to prove. Best matchup, just looking at this board, I think this is the most likely scenario right now. I think we're currently looking at what the playoff seeding is going to be. There's a chance that I'm wrong. I think that's what we're currently looking at. If that's the case, I think the best matchup from a betting perspective, I'm personally pretty interested in Miami and Kansas City. I don't know if I were to take money line on that, I think Kansas City is who I would take. Out of all the shit talking, out of all the receiving struggles that they have, I just think that their defense is going to be able to hang with Miami's offense better than what Miami's offense is going to do KC. NFC side, I would put an astronomical amount of money on the Lions money line if they're hosting Green Bay. That's how I feel about that. So there's your answer. How about you, Mark?
My most dangerous team in the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm doubling down on my take from last week where I think that this team's going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. They don't look good. They haven't looked good for a while, but there's been a few stretches in this Chiefs hot run they've had where they've won a couple Super Bowls and they've had another appearance, right? Where they haven't looked good offensively or defensively. They've had these like lags, but they figure it out. And I think they figured it out at the right time. And I think they got it a little bit better last week. I think they get it a little bit better this week. And I think they go into the playoffs. And I think that they somehow make a run. And you just don't want to see an Andy Reid coached team at Arrowhead with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback and with the defense they have. Now, if they had a weak defense, I wouldn't be saying this. But because of their defense being able to keep them in any game, and your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, you have to treat them as a threat, and I don't think people are talking about that enough. The Chiefs are still very much a dangerous team in the AFC, and then I would agree the other team to look out for would be the Bills because of Josh Allen, because of what we've seen them do and how he can just take over a game and they can get hot. In the NFC, without a doubt, the most dangerous team is the Detroit Lions. Nobody wants to play them. Nobody wants to see them at Ford Field. Nobody wants to have them come in their iced out cocaine white jerseys into their place. Nobody wants to see it.
Still undefeated in my heart, by the way, those ice whites.
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that team because, like we said earlier, they have everything to play for. This team is hungry. This team is good. This team is good at the right things to be able to compete in any playoff game. And I'll end this, and then I guess my best bet in the first round is if this was what happened, my best bet would be the Rams to cover against Dallas because that spread will probably be 3 or 4, maybe even 5. I think the Rams cover, maybe even win that game. I actually would like them to win that game. And then in the AFC, I like the Bills to stop the Texans if that's who they end up playing. If that's what happens, that's a little iffy because the Bills. That's assuming the Bills win this week. That's assuming the Texans get in, right? But if that were the case, that'd be that. Now I will say this: I've narrowed it down to 5 teams that can have any chance of winning the Super Bowl. Do you want to hear my 5?
Yes.
And this is before the playoffs is even set. For the record, okay? 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl. Every other team, I think, has 0% chance of pulling it off. There's many reasons. I'm not going to go into all of it, but these 5 teams can win the Super Bowl. The Ravens, the Niners, 2-1 seeds, obviously, okay? The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Detroit Lions. Those are my 5 teams that have the ability to win the Super Bowl. Notice there was 3 from the AFC, 2 from the NFC. Why? Don't trust Philly. Think they have holes in their team. Think they're kind of unraveling. Patricia being their defensive coordinator is a horrible decision. It's gonna bite Sirianni in the ass. Dallas struggling, can't run the ball. Not gonna win a championship, can't run the ball. Your defense is not as good as it was last year. Can't do it. I'm obviously not going to talk about the Ravens and Niners. You know why they're in my top 5. The Bills are dangerous because of Josh Allen. That's it. Josh Allen can win you a football game by himself.
Josh Allen that now has a run game, by the way.
A little, yeah. I mean, and he's done it without the running game, so you can't count him out. No. And then you know why the Chiefs. The Chiefs, like I just said, they have a great defense. They have Patrick Mahomes at the helm. They have Andy Reid on that side. Like, if they figure it out even a little bit in their receiving core, they are very, very dangerous. And that's it. There's no other team that can do it. I don't trust Miami. They have holes. They have injuries. Their offense is great. Their defense has struggled. I don't trust the Browns. Flacco's had a great run, but he can't put it together to take them to a Super Bowl. I don't trust the Texans. I don't trust the Colts if they're in. I don't trust the Packers if they get in. The Rams are a little dangerous, but I think they could steal one game. They're not stealing 2. And they're sure as hell not going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, my list is exactly the same as yours. I could make an argument for the Rams, I think.
Really? You think the Rams could win it all?
I think so. And here's why, is because let's say things shake out a certain way. I think that the only team that the Rams really don't match up well against out of this entire bracket that we're looking at is the Ravens. I think that's the only team. If it's a Rams-Ravens Super Bowl, I would not be confident. I think Rams...
You realize the Rams almost beat the Ravens 3 weeks ago.
I know.
In Baltimore.
I'm aware. And it was an amazing game. It was incredibly close. I think that's where the Rams got on the radar. I just think the Ravens, dude, are so good.
So you think anyone can beat the Ravens?
I don't know, dude. I think maybe San Fran, maybe the Lions. I think the Ravens are going to make the AFC side of the playoffs look easy, personally, because they've made it. Because how many teams have they embarrassed this season? They've embarrassed Miami. They've embarrassed San Fran. They've embarrassed Detroit. Every one of these teams gets called fraudulent after playing the Ravens. Maybe the Ravens are just that much better than everybody else that we shouldn't even be having a conversation about fraudulent. We should just recognize.
Does it concern you at all that they peaked at the wrong time?
No, it doesn't.
Does it concern you that they're going to have this week to rest and a bye week and maybe a little rust?
Nope. I think that this team has only ever needed the past 3 years a competent defensive coordinator and a receiving core to help complement Lamar's skills. I think they have both of those things, and I think we've seen nothing but this team just do this the entire season, and I think that is going to continue in the playoffs. That team is scary, like straight up. They are a scary, scary, scary team. I don't see any weaknesses. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, and maybe this take ages like milk. But Mark, I've been saying this since the beginning.
You have been saying it. You have been saying it. You're sticking by it, and I respect you for it. I respect you for it. I'm doubling down on a lot of my takes in this episode as well. You just got an hour of straight playoff football talk, whether we're looking at college, whether we're talking Go Blue, or we're talking about the Huskies, the dogs, the underdogs all year, or we're talking Lions recap or NFL playoff preview. This is basically an early little pre-playoff weekend because a lot of these games are playoff games in the NFL. And for some teams, it makes or break their chances of competing for a championship, which is what every team wants to do. And we are excited to be in this time of year. We look forward to it. And the offseason, John, how often do we mention, man, I can't wait till January, February, we're talking about college, the CFP, we're talking about NFL. Can't wait till we get to that. What a slow episode this was. Or, hey, we're going to do some film breakdown for you because it's not in season. Not this episode. This episode's loaded.
It will
be fun. The next one, and so will the next one, and so will the next one.
It will be super fun, and not only that, but I think our year in review, because we've done such a good job documenting our takes, putting stuff on Canva boards, having all of our picks. It's going to be fun to see how we did as commentators of football over this past season. I think we improved a lot from last season, and hopefully all of those watching along feel the same way. So with that, we hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Keep an eye out for short form content. We're always posting reels and TikToks and stuff like that, either right before or immediately after a big game happens. We are doing a lot in the world of football, and we are only going to get busier when this season's over and we're headed into the draft too, because Mark and I prepare our asses off for draft commentary as well.
If you're in Houston, hit me up, and if you're in Austin, hit us up because we may be around. Me and John may be in person together, so maybe you get a short form content video of us actually in the presence, in the flesh, which is rare nowadays. But go Blue.
Baby.
I'm riding with the Wolverines.
Blue.
We appreciate everybody who's been listening, and we appreciate all the love and the support and all the slight hate. It's funny, whatever. Yeah, I get it. I chewed gum in my freaking Lions recap.
Yeah, don't be chewing like a freaking cow while people are trying to listen to you talk, Mark. By the way, Mark is dealing with a cold, and he has been
I've sounded
excellent.
Awful this whole episode. But
no,
thanks.
You have been excellent on sniffle control, so I'm proud of you, buddy.
Oh, dude, I'm fighting it. Oh, my God. My stomach hurts, like my abs hurt right now because I've just been fighting it with every muscle in my body to not sniffle. And it's for you guys out there so that you guys don't hate us. And it's for John because he'd be like, dude, shut up.
These are some high quality headphones, and I was hearing every single one of those before we started recording. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great weekend. We will see you next week with more NFL content.
Go
Peace.
Blue.